Okay, so we're going to take a moment and take a look at a few percent word problems. These are all going to end up being geometric formulas at their core. We've already taken a look at these in class, so hopefully they're somewhat familiar. So this first one, you invest $500 into an account that earns 4% each year for 10 years. How much is it worth? So as a side note, remember that our basic formula is going to be this. We're going to have, one second, y is equal to my initial amount times my rate times time. So I equals initial amount. What do you start with? R equals your rate, your multiplier, so we have to take into account our percentage, and T equals time. Specifically, how many times do you apply interest? It's not just a time in months or years, but it's how many times you apply interest. Okay? So going back to our problem, you invest $500, so that means that's what I'm going to start with. So 500 is my I. I earn 4%, so I'm going to use that 4% to find my rate, and I'm investing for 10 years, so that T right there is going to be 10. Okay, so if I put all my pieces together, I have the following. I know that my initial amount is 500. Right? Now the rate is where we're careful. If we think about investing money and you're earning it, that means I'm gaining value. And so the way we want to think about it is this. The number that would go in for R, such that I could keep multiplying and not change anything, would be a 1, right? Because no matter how many times you multiply by 1, you get the same value. Well, in order to actually earn money, that means I need to multiply by a value greater than 1. So here's the way it's going to play out. My rate, that 4%, if I turn that into a decimal, 4% becomes 0.04, because I move the decimal place over twice. I need to do 1 plus that because I'm earning money. That means my multiplier for this problem is going to be 1.04. And then lastly, T, or my time, is going to be 10. Okay? So I can come over here and write my equation. Y equals my initial amount, 500, R, or my multiplier, which is 1.04, raised to the 10th. Right? Now we want to be careful, because just because you see parentheses, PEMDAS says inside of parentheses, which means I actually need to deal with the exponent first. So I'm going to come over and I'm going to take my calculator and I'm going to go 1.04 and I'm going to raise it to the 10th, and I'm going to get a number that is approximately 1.480. I'm going to use all the digits in my calculator, and I'll show you how to punch this into the calculator in a following video. I'm then going to multiply that by 500, and I would get that the account, or the investment, is now worth $740.12. Okay? So that's that first one right there. Let's go ahead and go on to number 2, see how this one looks. Number 2, it says the following. We buy a car for $18,000. If it depreciates 25% each year, how much can you sell it for in 5 years? So, same as before, my initial amount of the car is $18,000. That's what I pay for it. And I want to be careful. Depreciates means that I'm losing value, I'm losing money, and the 25% is going to be connected to my rate. Then it says how much will it sell for in 5 years, so that means 5 is going to be my T. Okay, so let's come back and take a look at this. My initial amount is $18,000. My rate of 25%. Now because I'm depreciating, I'm losing value, I need to subtract that decimal from 1. So I'm going to have 1 minus 0.25, which is going to give me 0.75. Okay? And then finally, T equals 5. So if I put that all together, I'm going to have y equals my initial amount, 18,000, my rate of 0.75, and my time of 5. Same as before, I need to punch that into my calculator, so I'm going to go 0.75, I'm going to raise that to the 5th, and so I get 0.2373, there's obviously more digits there, times that by my 18,000, oops, one too many zeros, and I get that now when I try to sell my car, it's only worth $4,271.48. So it has lost quite a bit of money over those 5 years, and it's down to $4,271.48. Now, I do want to point out this. You may be saying, well, 25%, that's about a fourth. So if I lose a fourth each year, shouldn't I already be at 0 in 5 years? And it's easy to think about it that way, but here's what you need to keep in mind. When I apply 25% the first time, I'm taking away 25% of 18,000. And then I have some price. Well, the second year, I'm taking away 25% of my new price. So it's not going to be the same amount that I'm taking or subtracting each year, because I'm taking 25% of its current value. So it takes a big chunk that first year, and then it's going to start to level out as years go on. Okay? Let's look at one more example, because I want to highlight one key detail. Very similar to the first one, this is number 3. Your savings account has a balance of $4,000. If you earn 1% in interest each month, how much is the account worth in 1 year? So starting off, $4,000, that is my initial amount. You earn, so that means I'm gaining money, and I see a 1%, so that's going to be my rate. So far so good. In interest each month, how much is the account worth in 1 year? Here's where we've got to be careful. At first, you might want to say T is 1 year, they gave me the time. But remember what I mentioned, T has to be how many times you apply interest. And so if I'm earning 1% each month, how many times was interest applied in the year? Well, for each of the months. So how many months are in a year? 12. So my T in this case would actually be 12. So writing that all down, my initial amount is $4,000. My rate is 1%, and I'm earning, which means I'm going to add that decimal to 1. Sorry for the extra decimal point there, I kind of got off a little bit, which means my multiplier is 1.01. And then finally my T is equal to 12. So putting that all together, I'm going to have y is equal to 4,000 times 1.01 raised to the 12th. So putting that all together, I get 4,000. My multiplier is 1.1268 times my 4,000 equals 45.07 and 30 cents. Okay? The key takeaway, read carefully. Don't assume that the first number is always your initial amount. Don't assume that the last number is always your time. Look at the context, think through the whole problem, and think critically. Okay?